Welcome to EpiSTEM podcast. This EpiSTEM podcast is brought to you from the National Centre of STEM Education at the School of Education in the University of Limerick. I'm your host, Geraldine Simmy, and I'm the Professor of STEM Education here at the Centre and the Director of EpiSTEM. And my co-host,
Michelle Starr, and I am the Research Liaison Officer in EpiSTEM.
Welcome back, everybody, and we're delighted today to be joined by Associate Professor Keelin Leahy. Keelin is a lecturer in wood technology and design here in the School of Education, and she's an affiliate with EpiSTEM, and we're really looking forward to chatting with you today, Keelin.
Thank you.
Hi, Keelin, welcome.
Thank you.
Do you want to tell us how you ended up doing or somehow connecting in with wood technology and design? How did this bug start? In some part of your life?
So from a family setting, my dad would have been really into as a hobby woodwork. So I would have always been brought up in that kind of a background, and also from an art and design background. And then in school, I was given the opportunity to study wood technology or materials technology at the time. And my teacher was female in Coláiste Mhuire in Ennis. So she really bestowed that representation of the female and the possibility. And we were the only female school in Ireland at the time. And then one day we were brought as an open day to UL. And she really encouraged me to do product design. She thought it would be really suited to my background and everything else. But the minute I spoke to someone on the product design table, I was very much so put off because it was very theory-based about physics. And I was like, no, not doing that. And that really then changed my options back to construction studies. And I put down both the programme in UL for the teaching of these subjects and then also architecture in Dublin. But like good timing as well, that I got 5 points short, didn't achieve that. So I was sent to UL. And that's where it all started. So
very
it's very
interesting.
much so. I was very lucky at the time because then the crash and housing.
Well, you are very lucky because for a start, you said two things that just hit me straight away was that you went to an all-female school, Coláiste Mhuire in Ennis, which was all-female, and also you female teacher in the construction studies, which are both very unusual. And even to do construction studies, you're a young person, but I mean, is it in an all-girls school? Would you find now that you're in the area of education and you know what's going on out there in the schools, would that be similar today? Would that be... When
our school, it was actually the highest in-demand subject, construction and the materials technology. So I think it was actually at the time it was put against art, and I would have chosen art, but I preferred the teacher. So the teacher was just more, I suppose.
The draw was there.
Yeah,
because the inspiring piece was there.
Yeah.
I mean, wood is a beautiful material to work with. I know my own father and brothers and all were interested, and we've all been running around helping as we'd be sent as helpers when they'd be doing a job, making chairs or tables or anything in our house as well. So it was great to get the opportunity. So when you are now here as an associate professor, are there many girls doing it? Have you got many female colleagues? What's the story here?
So when I started my position based on Bill Cochran retiring, rest his peace, I think there was myself. I was the only female academic at the time in the team of us. But over time, there has been an increase. So for example, Maria and Michaela now are also on the team, which are fantastic. Again, two Clare women. So it has really increased equally on the ground in terms of students, while our student numbers have gone up. So at my class group, there was 5 females in a group of 30, which was quite big at the time of my undergrad. And it has decreased with the increase. If you talk about percentage-wise, there hasn't been an increase in female representation. No. So in the third year group, there's 2 females. In the current second year group, there is 7 females. So it changes, but there still is a representation. It's small.
Yeah, well, we're interested, I guess, in the idea of, I suppose, more women and girls in STEM education and all of that. And kind of if you can see people in it, I suppose you can imagine yourself doing it. So that inspiration's important. But if we move on to your research, can we talk about your research? I know you've a lot published in design thinking and work done in that area. Do you want to talk about any of that research to us?
Yeah. So from my own undergrad, I always felt that design, in terms of how to do it, wasn't necessarily taught. It was almost as if you have it or you don't have it. And even if we look at how it's assessed in second level, there is a gap there in terms of how to assess. It's very much so on the output rather than the process how you can be creative, your designly thinking, etc. So for me, I felt there was a gap there, and I think that needs to be encouraged. So that led to two things, both from a pedagogy side. I want to produce more resources for on the ground, as well as the research side. I have that divide that I feel that often research goes on a shelf and it's not actually used. And I like to actually ensure that what I do, my teaching and my research, go together.
Hand in glove.
I think that's really important.
Yeah.
So I've led to the textbook, which is Design Roots, but then also the resources that go with that, for example, Design Heuristics. And I went on a 1-year sabbatical to the University of Michigan and Iowa State. And I joined a group it was a mixed group. There was a psychologist in the group, a product designer and an engineer. And I was brought in as the pedagogist, the person who was teaching, and how do we teach all these resources they were producing. So they had design heuristics from a third level perspective developed. And that resource was very much so how designers design on the ground. And they're simply cognitive prompts. So it's simply how the mind works is very much so hidden.
Yes.
And young people on the ground don't know how the mind works. So these cognitive prompts are just simply ways that designers change their ideas in little steps.
Yes.
So I worked with that team in the US, and it was very much so about, does this resource, design heuristics, help designers overcome fixation? So that's they don't get stuck on an idea, but they push past it to be more creative.
Yes.
And then when I came back after that year sabbatical, I thought, this is a big gap in the Irish system. We don't have these resources at primary or post-primary. So I set about to actually redesign the resource to be more, in terms of the literacy level, was appropriate, not from third level, but down to second level. And also to actually remove the examples. So sometimes when you give someone an example, they fixate too much. And I felt at post-primary level that while they need examples, giving them too many, they'll fix it too much.
It's like you need some open space.
Yes.
It's like it's a balancing kind of a dynamic, isn't it?
So I really simplified the resource to be, in terms of it has both the visual and the verbal. So I'd really try to approach it from a UDL perspective. So it has the little keywords, but it has an image to represent what it also means.
Yeah, and it's got a lot of psychology underneath it, and pedagogically sound. It's going to do what it says on the tin in a sense. But these resources are made. Are they for the students here in the University of Limerick? For you're actually like teaching teachers that are going to be out there in the actual post-primary schools. Is that the resources that you're developing?
So I would use it with the students in terms of they use it themselves, because one important thing from a recent study with the junior cycle review from the NCCA, we found that teachers, what their approach to creativity is more so the medium they use, such as, I showed them a video, whereas they don't have the tools to actually get the students thinking in their mind.
Yes.
And that's what's really needed. So I would use it with all my initial teacher education, pre-service teachers as a tool. So they have to experience it, because if a teacher doesn't have the confidence themselves to be creative and represent creativity, how can they instill that in their young people in the classroom?
So it's kind of a toolkit of technology tools, and it's design thinking heuristics is kind of those heuristics are sort of theoretical as well, are they?
Well, I try to keep it very practice-based.
Yeah,
I do.
But they have their origins in some theories.
Oh, they do, of course. So it's a study done by Sadie Elmas. It was her PhD initially.
Lovely.
And she studied a product designer and tracked how he designed, and from that extracted all the ways. So yes, it is 100. It's an empirical study, so it is proven in terms of impact and effect. But the design heuristics have also been used by IDA. So at the time, it would have been the JCT. So the home economics team have used it. Also, English groups have used it. So it's not necessarily solely for technology education.
Yes.
Creativity.
And then the books that you've written here, these are for junior cycle, are they?
That's a junior cycle textbook, which is very much so the wood technology.
Yes. And it's called Design Roots.
But when I wrote this book, I wanted, because the integrated approach for the new specifications of junior cycle, I wanted to move away from the content-heavy nature of our subjects and really have more of a project-based learning approach, that it's an integrated learning, that students, one love of our subject, and it really brings the well-being into our subject, is the projects. Students love to make things. And as much as people are condescending towards that, it is what our subject is about at the end
It is,
of
of
the day.
course. It is, of course.
It really does foster that.
Yeah, and that condensation and condescending that we have is all historical old stuff anyway, about head, hand and heart being all separate as opposed to holistic, and the modern thinking, the pliable brain, all the brain science and neurosciences debunking all of that old dualism that was there from me. That's imprinted back in the psyche. It's there, but it's not holistic thinking. So you're really up to speed with holistic thinking.
Yes, it has to be there. So
Yeah, because something has to be done both in theory and in practice.
Correct, and it is a metacognitive thing that we're trying to get our young people to design. The practice of design is a team task.
Well, I can hear your passion, and I also am delighted to think that your work, that you actually have gone to the bother and the effort of actually making it work for a Gillen Macmillan book for junior cycle. That's a wonderful achievement, that you've actually taken the work that you're doing at a high academic level, that you've published in the academic literature, but you've translated it and made it actually happen for students in the actual post-primary curriculum, which is a fantastic thing to be able to give your student teachers.
Yeah, and it is something that we would, for example, first year, do have that approach that while they have to have the domain readiness, they have to know that bit.
Yeah.
And I think this comes from the OECD study, both the creativity and critical thinking project, but also the assessment of critical thinking. And they represent the enablers for creativity. Yeah. And you have to have individual enablers, such as your domain readiness. So while prescribed projects are often people would not see them as a good light, but you need to have domain readiness.
Yes.
You need to have task motivation, that they're actually motivated and have the confidence to do something.
Yes.
So those individual enabler aspects through our project-based learning are really important, but equally comes the classroom environment, the context they're in.
Yeah,
so if you have that environment that they want, you keep them making, because that's essentially what they want to do, but then you have to bring in that integrated head and heart.
Yes, you do.
Yes, they're using their hands, but you integrate the head, what they're doing,
and
heart is really important.
We don't really need to go into it today, but I suppose that creativity is a kind of a contested concept as well, because you're speaking of it in a kind of, how would I say, from a psychology perspective, whereas it can also be looked at from the arts, and it can be looked at from other social sciences, it can be looked at from other ways, but you're looking at it with that lens, which is important. It's the psychology lens, but there are other lenses as well that it can be brought in and looked at. Do you want to add anything there?
I just want to ask, I suppose, a very simple question, in that, going back to that original study and, of course, what you've continued now once you got back to Ireland and within the curriculum, have you noticed that that there is more, moving away from the fixation, showing examples constantly and letting the students self-generate their, whatever they're designing, and then they have the scaffolding here as well. But have you noticed a difference in their designs since that design process was changed?
I think some students would say, "Oh, this doesn't work for me. That it's not my flow thinking." So it's not just one way of doing something. So we would expose them to, for example, there's Edward de Bono sings Thinking Hats. There's Scamper. There's brainstorming. So there's many strategies out there. So it's about giving them the tools and let them pick then what works best, because everybody's unique. Yeah. And creativity is a minefield. Yes. So it's more, and we are all creative. Yeah. We're humans. We problem solve every single day. The minute we wake up, in terms of what we wear, how we dress, we're encountering problems every single day. And it's how we actually think to overcome these problems. Yes. So it's a matter of giving the young person the tools to think and instill the motivation that they are creative and nurture that. I think the assessment, at primary level, I think from learning through play and the Ashton program are excellent. They really instill creativity in young people. But when they come to post-primary level, unfortunately, there is an assessment-driven nature of education. And that assessment-driven nature instills one right answer, fear of failure, which are prohibitors to creativity, unfortunately.
And unfortunately, that's outside of the teacher's remit. That's the system they have to work within, and
the
teachers are
performer
fantastic. I mean, we know we're meeting and we work with them all the time, and they just work as best they can around.
But it does kill play, innovation, imagination, all the things that everybody's crawling and roaring for in the world now.
Even freedom of choice,
even critical thinking.
It does.
So I think it can. It is possible.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of a shift, and it's these little shifts. It's not a major rehaul of the system, because from the junior cycle study, students were expressing in their CBA, it facilitated freedom of choice. It facilitated motivation, that they could connect with something from community, etc. But when they came to the final exam, they were brought right back to no freedom of choice, no representation of their ideas, their thoughts, critical thinking. So if they can do it in one aspect of the CBA, for example, it surely could be integrated in other aspects of assessment.
So of course.
Just another step forward that has to be taken,
I know you've a huge interest, I think, global citizenship and sustainability and all those bigger questions, but you have a very nice paper written with a number of colleagues and around, I suppose, communities of practice and all of that area. Did that happen around COVID time or since, or what happened that you got together and shared your reflexive positions, and what did that mean to you?
So that happened, yes, it was around COVID, and it was a study, four of us came together and we supported colleagues with a space to share issues but also learning gained during the shift to online learning. And I think within teacher education, communication is essential. It's how we operate. So we had to open up that space, a safe space, to allow colleagues to come together. There was 12 of us, so we met about 32 meetings, I think, in total across the period. And it was very much so safe space to communicate what we were doing, how we were teaching online, what was good, what was bad, any even student issues. How were students feeling? What were the concerns they were encountering? How can we connect more to our students? How can we engage them more? And it allowed that space, that safe space, to actually learn and develop in this new way of teaching and learning. And I think it was the first time I've ever actually operated in that community practice. It was more qualitative research that I've never done before. So my colleagues, for example, Antonia Cauldron, was very supportive in that method of research.
And MacPhail was on that,
as well,
and Niamh O'Mara.
So it was a huge learning
Joanne O'Flaherty, I think, if I remember all the names right. I mean, the beauty of the paper is it's a quartile one paper in teaching and teacher education. It's a very prestigious publication in the field of education, and it shows, I suppose, that willingness, as you say, to openly discuss where you were going and what you were doing at the time. What kind of difference do you think it has made to your work as an academic now?
I think the whole approach to actually more dialogue and how powerful dialogue can be in research, that it doesn't always have to be this quantitative big numbers, but there's actually deeper and more meaning in dialogue with colleagues, and you learn a lot more. Because at the end of the day, we're a very small group, and it is a very small discipline. So I think that richer learning is actually far more powerful.
I mean, it makes, when you experience it, you understand what they mean when they say deep learning. I mean, you can be on the surface all the time and working with the number, and the number's fine. We're not saying anything, the numbers are grand, but it's actually that deeper learning.
Well, also and also what it's doing is the qualitative. I mean, I suppose I'm more of a qualitative, because coming from the sociological end of education. And it opens up. You're not preempting. You're not. You're not because you're not, because you're with the quantitative. You have to preempt, and you're just proving true or false, etc., etc. But the other is it's leaving qualitative. You find out so much more. It's much deeper, and you're finding out what's happening on the ground within that context. It's always within a context, and that's what a lot of things are, is within the context of the place and the time, etc.
Yes. It can be a lot more learning involved in it.
Absolutely. A lot more learning.
And it's harder as well, because you have to really put in a philosophical lens for interpreting. But can I go back to that just community of practice, which is amazing? They're hard, aren't they, to organise? Because you need a facilitator. Or do you find that,
But I think so. It's funny because that was a very structured, we sent the group questions, and it was very much so simple questions. What were your struggles this week? What was your most learning? So it was it actually just initiated the conversation. And that was needed in that, but invariably the conversation really flowed very well. But I had tried to set up a community practice in another project, which is the Global Citizenship Education, which is the Irish aid funded project under the Ubuntu network.
Yeah, that you're presently doing.
And I tried to set up that community practice, but it fell flat. It didn't fall flat in its face, but it was more so academics' workload was a hard thing to negotiate with, that they could all come together and have a talk. And that led to, I had to almost abandon that, but rethink how I can still capture the valuable voice of the teacher educator and how it can be shared amongst colleagues.
Yeah.
So that led to the podcast, which is just capturing what people are doing in terms of GCE, in ITE, and it was both for teacher educators but also for student teachers.
Yeah.
So they could share from both perspectives, what would you recommend or what would you do to help your student teachers in the classroom.
Wow, yeah,
so, and it's captured, and I think it can be, in terms of its use, it goes on for a lot longer.
Yeah.
It's not just in that moment in time.
Yeah.
So,
they are a hard thing too, but once you get it, you can get it. It's just having that facilitator, someone always has to hold it together.
Yeah. And I think it's allowing people to talk as well is really important. And that's hard often, to just sit back and allow the voice to...
Well, if you believe in, I suppose, education as a relationship of learning, you'll make the space and you'll make sure the knowledge comes into it somehow, but that you'll actually create the space as opposed to going in. I suppose you go in with the giving the attention and the space and creating that, and then all the other things nicely come in their own time, and they come in a way that they're received very well then.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's a more nuanced and more sophisticated way of thinking about the teaching experience than just going bold-headed in.
I think the community practice allows that reflexive thought as well.
Yeah.
Do you know, and you won't get that with podcasts, but at the same time, it's just a different output. What are you looking for? So I think there's always multiple modes of representation.
Yes.
And I think this was because the community practice with workload wasn't possible. I think the podcast facilitated or captured that the best way possible at the time.
Exactly, yeah, very good.
Is there anything else that we have forgotten to ask you now or say or whatever?
No, I think...
I just want to say, I think you're a great inspiration, Keelin, for, that whole wood technology construction, especially in, in everything you're doing, and even more so with, young girls coming up along. And I think it's wonderful to see yourself and others in that area, in that space.
But I think it's really important to just do something that you love.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're
like
right.
at the end of the day, I think that's it. That's my motivator. I don't see work as work.
Yeah.
It's what I love. I love being in the lab.
They say if you do what you work, you'll never work a day in your life. That kind of thing. It's do what you love. It's follow your dream, your passion, inspire people to do that. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And being able to support people pedagogically and with your philosophical and theoretical underpinnings to your work. You've brought practice to the heart of what you're doing, which is making it very experiential and making people feel and get involved. But we've got different literature all over the world now telling us this is the way, this is how to do it.
Yeah.
So we're blessed with that, all of that knowledge in that space too.
Yeah, but it's important as well not to, like, our subject, they often have that idea that it's all about making stuff, and it's not that. And I think it's the balance between, while creativity is about something new and something of value, that value point is really important, because that connects to GC, that we're making things for society, for people, for planet.
That's it.
So it's the integration of all the skills.
It comes back to the why, that we have a why, we have a purpose, we know what we're doing, and we're in relationship with others. So we are actually not just singular units on our own.
Cause.
It's the bigger purpose. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank
you today for Associate Professor Keelin Leahy. It was lovely talking to you. And we'll take a minute for a few seconds. I suppose we've a few announcements to make, and we're winding up our podcast as well for this term and semester. And so I suppose the first one is we have just received an IRC, Irish Research Council Award now for a postdoc for Dr. Vo Vande. It's with Eli Lilly, which is a very, very fabulous award for us. And Epistem and Michelle and myself are really looking forward in the new year to actually working with Eli Lilly and with Vo to make a difference to the work of chemistry teachers in Ireland and chemistry across the curriculum in Ireland as well.
Yeah.
Is there anything you need to add on that, or have
No, that's it. You got everything.
I got it said there. I would like to say thanks, I suppose, to all the people who took part this semester in the podcast as well. A particular word of thanks to Professor Matthew Noon, who's here in the Irish World Academy of Music and Dance, and who has been sending over the students who've been wonderful with us, singing and playing and doing all their original work with us. So thank you to Matthew. Is there? Do you want to say?
Yeah, I think we should say a few others. We'll say thanks to Greg here, Greg Rogala, who's helping us. He's here. He's our producer. We wouldn't have these recordings except for Greg, and also to Helen Fitzgerald, who's in Epistem, and she helps us all the time in the background and with these, preparing these or getting the podcasts up and running. And then Samuel Bergskiewicz, who's just recently started with us as a research assistant, and he's doing the social media side of things, which I, for one, won't speak for Geraldine, but I'm not very good at that area of getting things out in social media.
Yeah, and Niamh O'Mara then with us as our deputy in the course director with us here in Epistem as well. And what's the name of the hub we're in at the moment? What's this place called?
The Digital Hub.
The Digital Hub. So we're in the actual Digital Hub here in UL, and it's a fantastic setting. And I'm sure if any of you want to connect with us, I'm sure we'll be able to show it to you someday if you want to come and visit us in UL. But in the meantime, it says subscribe and do all those things to tell us how you're getting on with the podcasts. So we'll be played out today by a piece of music, well, a singer actually, Nora Gowran, and Nora is from Ennis in County Clare, up the banner, and Nora is actually a first year student here doing a BA in World Music, and she's a sean-nós singer, and we're going to hear her now sing a beautiful sean-nós song called Groma Free, Love of My Heart.
Grama crema fastin fiain a Chris agna e goirilam a ciog a giala mar vlog na grain is a peep mar la Marta está samaruan está samaruan is magragiel está samaruan is ma common gabuin she ma crack on to gum o da gragiel Carama crema fastin fiain a Chris agna e goirilam a ciog a giala mar vlog na grain is a peep mar ella Marta está samaruan está samaruan is magragiel está samaruan is ma common capuin she ma crack on to gum o da gra